Hello, everyone. Dr. Victoria Skirbo here, speaking to you from the Seeds of Transformation Healing Center in Wareham, Massachusetts. We're going to do the astrology of the upcoming week. Today is the 7th of June, and it is a Monday. And this is for the 6th of June, Sunday. Sorry, I couldn't get it out yesterday until Saturday, the 12th, I believe. All right, so let's get started here. Really, this week, I just have to find it. Yes, here we go. I believe I have it right here. So we're in week 2, and just have to share this with you. Sorry, it's kind of early, and I just had my first cup of coffee, so I'm a little slow, but it will speed up. I promise. So the first thing we're going to do is we're just going to look at the general energy of the week, all the sort of things happening, and then we'll get into the specifics of, there's actually one huge story this week, and that's the eclipse. And then there's a subplot with Mars actually moving into the sign of Leo, which is important because Mars is in its way powerful in Leo. It's powerful in the fire signs. It's powerful in Capricorn. So this is the first time that Pluto is going to be in a fire sign since it was in Aries. Of course, it spent a lot of time in Aries. Did I say Pluto? I meant Mars. It spent a lot of time in Aries, about 6 months, and some of that time retrograde. So it was a very intense period when Mars was in Aries, but now it's in Leo, and there's connection to the time that it was in Aries through through a trine, through a flowing aspect. So I also believe perhaps that there are things that um, occurred while Mars was in Aries, both direct and retrograde, which was, I believe, from, I want to say August, but it even could have been July, until it changed signs on the 20th of January. So it was a good 6 months in Aries, but things that were planned at that time may come to fruition through that trine aspect. So we have to be aware of that, and we have to be careful because of that. Okay, so let's talk about the week. So yesterday, Sunday, sorry about that, the moon shifted into Taurus, and it actually made a semi-square with the sun, and that starts the last phase of the lunation cycle, called the balsamic phase, now between the new moon in Gemini, and which is on the 10th, and Sunday, which is the 6th, so it's 4 days. It's a period of extracting meaning from the last month, and so it's a time of introspection, really, and a time of pondering. Of course, we're helped with the hold on. We're helped with the introspection. See what I mean about the coffee? Hold on a second. Because Mercury is retrograde anyway, and we have to be introspective when Mercury is retrograde. We have to take the information in and run it through our filters and see how it makes us feel and all that stuff. How you feeling? I bet you're feeling all different kinds of ways, because that's the energy. Okay, today, June 7th, the moon is in Taurus all day. It makes a conjunction to Uranus and a square to Saturn. The reason that that is important is because next week, Saturn and Uranus will be making the second of 3 exact squares that's happening through 2021. In fact, 2021, the aspect of 2021 is the square between Uranus and Taurus. And it's really about the process of individuation, the process of individuation. And that cycle began back in 1988. So this is a long, I think, maybe, is it a 45-year cycle? 1988? Not quite, no. Well, it's a long, it's definitely a long cycle. I'm trying to remember when these two planets come back together again. 2026? No. Saturn and Uranus and Saturn. I have to look that up. I don't know, actually. I don't know. I'll check it. Or I don't remember. I know I've seen it. So that being said, the moon making these aspects to these two planets that are in aspect to each other, that's going to be like soon, is going to be exact, brings your personal life into this sort of evolutionary stage that we're in. And so we personally feel the need to individuate. We personally feel the need to break free from something, some way of thinking or way of believing that has sort of kept us in this position of not having an opportunity to trust your own instincts on things in a way. So because, you know, somebody's telling you what to do and that's the way it has to be done, and that, so we can feel that start to break apart, as it were. And perhaps when we have the exact square, which is occurring on the 14th of June, then something will break at that time, right? Something that was hinted at today will come to a breaking point, or a point of where, you know, a decision has to be made. Okay, Tuesday, June 8th, the moon in Taurus trines Pluto and sextiles Mars. Remember that Mars and Pluto are still sort of in the orb of that opposition. Whatever realizations that came upon that opposition, which occurred on the 5th, which was Saturday the 5th, with the moon again connecting to those two planets. This time in those two planets are in a challenging aspect to each other, but the moon is in a supportive aspect to those planets. So I feel like there's you know, something in our personal lives will reflect that, perhaps that opposition, which very often is associated with a power struggle. So we might be having some personal power struggles come Tuesday. And then on the 9th, which is Wednesday, the moon moves into Gemini, and the moon will make a conjunction to the North Node. The North Node is actually the North Node of the moon. And so when the moon makes a conjunction to its own node, it points to the direction of the future. So we'll have a little intimation of possible future scenarios. But it does make us sort of, it puts our feelings and our hopes and perhaps our aspirations into the future. It's not about the past anymore. It's about how are we walking into the future. We also have on that day the sun conjoining Mercury retrograde. Oh no, sorry, that's the 10th. This is the 9th. The moon makes a sextile to Chiron. We can talk about the wounds that are driving us and driving the situation. And we also have the moon trine Saturn, which brings form to some of our ideas. So there's a lot of things sort of formulating right before this this eclipse. And some of it we'll be able to move forward on, and others the eclipse may change the energy enough that we need to do it in a different way, but you're not going to know until you're moving through it, right? So Friday the 10th, Friday the 10th, Thursday. Thursday, June 10th, we have the new moon solar eclipse at 20 degrees of Gemini. We're going to go into that much deeper. On the same day, we have the sun conjoined Mercury, which is the highlight of the Mercury retrograde cycle. On June 11th, which is Friday, we have the moon move into Cancer, moves into the next sign, and Mars ingresses into Leo. As I said at the beginning, Mars hasn't been in a fire sign since the day of the inauguration. No, since the day of the insurrection. Did I say the 20th? I meant the day of the insurrection. That's when Mars moved into Taurus. On Saturday, the moon in Cancer makes a trine to Jupiter in Pisces, which is a flow of healing energy. The moon in Cancer is square Chiron in Aries, a crisis in action to attend to said wounds. And Venus makes a first quarter square to Chiron, another crisis in action. So I feel like on the other side of the eclipse, there is attempts to really, or there's going to be a need to, in some cases, take care of people's wounds, really have to look at them, really have to face them, and have a plan to work with them, and help support the healing of those wounds. Okay, so let's take a look at the new moon solar eclipse in Gemini. First of all, it's a north node eclipse. How do you know if we're at a north node or a south node eclipse? You look to see if the sun is near the north node or the south node of the moon. If it's near the south node of the moon, we're in a south node eclipse season. If it's near the north node of the moon, we're in a north node eclipse season. This north node eclipse season began with a full moon lunar eclipse in Sagittarius, very powerful lunar eclipse, blood moon. But it did require us to let go. It's like we had to let go of something before we could move forward with this new moon. And this new moon really is talking about new beginnings, right? And it's new beginnings on steroids because it is a eclipse. So let's look at the Sabian symbol for 20 degrees of Gemini. It says a modern cafeteria displays an abundance of food products of various regions, assimilation of multifarious knowledge through the synthesizing power of the mind. Now, the person who wrote this book used a lot of very big words. So let's read what he means. This is from Dane Rudger's astrological, the Sabian symbols and astrological mandala. This book right here. Says, from the one, the many arises in due time. The original source gives birth to a mountain stream, which gathering to itself the downflow of rainwater becomes a large river around which cities are built. These in turn pollute the river on its way to the vast ocean. This modern symbol expresses the fact that man, now at the close of a cultural cycle, is able to gather foodstuffs, mental as well as physical, from many regions of the globe. His diet has acquired a planet-wide foundation. History tells us that the search for salt and spices, then for commodities rare in local regions, provided the impetus for global trade, and thus eventually for planetary consciousness. As a result, the results may be satiety. You may be satiated. I know that's not the way you say the word. And indigestion and mental confusion caused by a lack of discrimination. This is the last symbol of a 16-fold sequence. And as most often the case, the fifth stage implies a certain kind of synthesis, or at least a preparation, which leads to a new level. The keynote here is indeed assimilation. The negative potentiality of the symbol is waste. So there is a symbol of this multiplicity of experience, a multiplicity of life, and culture and how all these things sort of come together, um, and how they can both help us to become more aware of the multiple levels of how things can manifest, um, or it can create, because there is, perhaps so much maybe differences, um, that it can create a toxic environment if we focus perhaps on the differences. That's how I would read that. But I mean, I'm sure there's many ways of looking at that. So let's look at the eclipse. This is the eclipse for Washington, D.C. It is occurring in the 12th house. The 12th house can be the house of open enemies, closed enemies, or hidden enemies. So that's something to be considered when you're looking at a mundane chart. This 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 eclipse is being squared by Neptune. Neptune is conjunct, still squaring uh, the eclipse, Sun Moon, in Pallas Athena in Pisces, bringing in the need for compassion around issues of social justice and a need to heal that. We see that, for the United States anyway, that square of Neptune and Pallas is in the 10th house. It may mean that the president, this is something the president needs to attend to. And of course, he's very conscious, I think, of the needs of those who are suffering, and not all the needs, and not all those who are suffering. It depends on, to a certain extent, who this is we're talking about, and if the United States is invested in their freedom, or invested in their lack of freedom, right? Um, all right. So the other thing that we have in this eclipse is we have Uranus conjunct uh, Ceres. It's interesting. Uranus is conjunct Ceres, Neptune is conjunct Pallas. These are the feminine asteroids. Um, let's see here. We have Juno, Vesta here all by itself in Taurus, squaring the nodes. So we have Vesta squaring the nodes in this eclipse. Vesta is what we focus on, and in Virgo, it's about perfecting, it's about healing, it's about just making things work better. The resolution node for this skip step with Vesta, for those of you who know what I'm talking about, the resolution node is the north node in the 12th house. And this is about communicating with others. It's also about communicating with spirit. The 12th house is other dimensions. So this is very interesting. Now, as this is a Gemini new moon, I always look to see where Mercury is. And Mercury is at 21 degrees of Gemini. And so we look at the Sabian symbol for that. A tumultuous labor demonstration, the revolutionary impact of mental concepts upon the collective emotions and desires of man. The mass of men have been aroused by mental images, slogans, and an appetite for the abundance of the ruling class enjoys. This also applies to the individual person who is contrasting spheres of activity have taken shape as a result of a mind-based individualization process. The organic function makes their collective demands upon the lordly intellect. The stage may be set for a kind of revolution we call psychoneuroses. This begins a 17-fold, five-fold sequence of symbols. It sets the stage for a tumultuous process, which may lead to a new approach to the problems resulting from individuation. It's interesting because part of what is happening with this whole QAnon and stuff is there are levels of delusion that we're dealing with, but the energy that they're giving them delusionary information. I think they're giving them wrong information. Um, but what they're preying on is this energy of individuation. It is this energy that people want a change. And if the people in power aren't going to help with that change, then they will, these people may think it's their idea, but they're to a certain extent being, what's the word I'm looking for? They're being unduly influenced. There's another word, I can't think of that. Um, and so it's a natural need to individuate, but individuation is really about trusting your own instincts. And in order to trust your instincts, you also have to have a certain amount of logic and such. It can't just be like these crazy dreams that you have. It has to be balanced with some logic. So imagination and logic need to be balanced in these situations. And I think that's where people are having an issue. Um, it says the repressed instinct stage an emotional outburst claiming their due. So this is a time when people are wanting to be heard. And it will be interesting to see how that manifests itself through this period of time. So let's look at Mars's ingress into Leo. Here we have Mars. It's moving into Leo. This is for what do we have? This is for Washington D.C. It's occurring in the 10th in the 12th house. Again, a lot of things happening in the 12th house. We have the Sun here at 11 degrees of Cancer. This is not the Sun. Venus is pretty close to um, the Sun in the United States chart. We have the Moon at about 3 degrees of Cancer. That's very close to the degree of Jupiter, the Jupiter of the United States. And then, of course, we have Mercury here, still at 21 degrees. Mercury, when you look at, you have Mercury here at 21 degrees, you have the Sun at 21 degrees. When you look at a planet move into, in the case of Mars, moving into Leo, it's disposited by the Sun, right? When Mars was in Cancer, it was disposited by the Moon. So every 2.5 days, there was a new feeling and a new project and you wanted to get something done. So there was a lot of variation in the things that you did over the time that Mars was in Cancer. Now Mars is moving into Leo, and it's much more focused on where the sun happens to be. And the sun happens to be in, initially it's in Gemini. So communication is going to be big when it comes to Mars. It's going to move into Cancer. And then Mars is going to act in a way driven by the feelings of Cancer, which can be emotional and we can feel picked on with when the sun's in Cancer. We're just very, very sensitive. But right now with Mars in Leo and the dispositor being the Sun in Gemini, it's a time of conversation. It's a time of communication. And what kind of communication? Well, the Sun is at 21 degrees Gemini. And here we have the 21 degrees of Gemini, a tumultuous labor demonstration. So we can expect that people are going to take to the street for one thing or another. Is it going to be a labor demonstration? I don't know, but I feel like there's going to be people wanting to have their voice heard over certain things. So let me Let me get out of this for you guys. Stop the share. Okay, so what do I want to say? Of course, this eclipse, the degree of this eclipse is going to be active and sensitive for months. Um, it's not just the day of the eclipse, um, but remembering that this is a North Node eclipse and this is about moving into a new future. And it's going to take the evaluation and amassing of information. But remember, Mercury's retrograde. So everything has to go through your personal. You can't take anything at face value. Just because somebody said it doesn't mean it's real. The other thing that we have to consider, and I say, you have to put it through your filters. But if your filter is one of belief and not facts, you might come up with a different conclusion. It's hard to really know what's going to happen, quite frankly. Let's do, I'm going to pull some cards on this eclipse. Um, I'm just trying to decide what cards I want to use. Eclipse in Gemini. All right, I'll use this deck. Oh, that's funny. I'm going to use the fountain deck. So I haven't used this deck in a long time, and I really like it. So let's take a quick look at the eclipse. What do we need to be aware of with this eclipse? Real quick. Hopefully this isn't going too long. I can't really tell. As I said, I'm a little slow this morning. Let's have a little more coffee. Why, hello there. There's a cardinal right outside my window. He was clicking at me, and he's just looking at me. He's like, "Hey, lady." Of course, cardinals are, spirit. Cardinals have been very active. I feel like my dad's been around. When I see the male cardinal, when I see the female cardinal, I feel my sister. And of course, hummingbirds, which always remind me of my sister Patty. Small and mighty, territorial and beautiful. You could not step on her toe. She would not let you step on her toe, which is good because people shouldn't step on people's toes. Yeah, she was quite a beautiful soul. Still is, just not embodied anymore. Okay. Justice as the first thing that comes up. So this looks like whatever's happening is going to balance the scales. This can't be, this has to be looked at, and I hate to bring him into the picture, but this, of course, Trump has a lot to do with this and what's going to be happening because this eclipse is occurring on his North Node. And you know what? I will later today, if I have an opportunity. Hey, Charlie. My cat got out. Now he's in my office. If I have the opportunity, we'll take a look at Trump's chart and this eclipse. I think it's important. But I have to see if I have the time because I'm pretty busy today. And we're purging. So to see how far I get on that. Let's see what's crossing. So we have justice, the Eight of Wands. So this is so funny. The challenge to justice is that there's just so much information coming out that they have to pick and choose what they're gonna have to pick their battles because there's just so much information. There's so many things they could get him on, just so many things. And we have the Knight of Coins at the base here. And I think that this might be on Weiselberg. I think he's a key pin here. I didn't want to talk about Trump, but it's coming up. I'm sorry. I'll read it as Trump, and then I'll read it for all of us. Why don't I do that? The 10 of coins in the past. This is the Trump organization, the money. Let's see what's in the sky. The 5 of cups. He's bumming. He's bumming. Lots of sorrow. Lots of sorrow. The 10 of wands. You know, he is not going to be able to, this is just sort of overwhelmed and just, you know, very little light, lots of things to do. This is just a mess. It's like a total mess. How it's seen from the outside, we're nearly to the top. 9 of wands. The sun in the domestic situation. The devil and the hopes and fears. Yep. And the outcome. The chariot, moving on. Okay, so this looks like the that justice is going to come down on Trump, probably through Weiselberg. That's the weak link here. There's going to be a lot of sorrow and a lot of trouble, and it's time for him to move on. So I don't think, quite frankly, I don't think Trump has much of a future when it comes to this, although he could probably throw Weiselberg and his kids under the bus, and then he could continue on harassing the Republicans and making them do his bidding, if they're stupid enough to do it. But that's up to them. I don't know. You know, they seem pretty. It's a mess. It's a mess for them. And it must be hard for Republicans who really believe in the sort of ideals of republicanism. But you know, us libs have been suffering long enough, so enjoy. Is that a terrible thing to say? I think that was a terrible thing to say. So honestly, this looks like the end of Trump, which is really, I want this to be about us, not about him. So let's see, let's try to read this in the case of us. So I think there's going to be a lot of information, a lot of legal stuff happening. It could be around resources and perhaps there's a sense of middlemen, a need for just a redistribution of resources. People are not going to put up with it. They're going to insist on justice. They're going to say hello, and it's time to move on. And we want to have light in our life. It's you know, we're tired of following these hoo-has who are sort of manipulating us and sort of in holding our attention when our attention needs to be on ourselves and our own resources and our own need to move on. It's time to move on. It's time to move into the future. It's time to get moving. It's time to be in the sun again. And yet there is a lot of challenges and there's still a lot of things that we need to get through. We're not always going to have the amount of light that we need to see as clearly as we would like, but there's going to be a certain amount of trust that goes with that. And eventually the light will shine. The light will shine, and it will shine very brightly. And we will see, and we will all be better for it. That's what I think these cards say. So hopefully you enjoyed that. If you haven't already subscribed, please do. If you haven't already liked it, please press the like button. The more likes I get, the more people see this. Even if it's not the best thing I've done, if you could like it, I would love it. All right, guys, much love. Take care. Be careful out there this week. It's, again, be aware and take care. It's the mantra for 2021. I love you all, and namaste. Much love.